What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new edition of Touchdown Texas. I'm your host, Shiva Patel, flying solo today, and we hope everybody is doing well and having a good week. A lot of action so far on the 40 acres. The Longhorns just finished spring practice last week. They had a fan open scrimmage that they did, and as well as some drills, even though the weather was kind of rainy and bad in Austin, Texas. So I'm going to be talking about that, as well as a lot of news so far about the players that have been performing really well in the spring and that have been turning heads, and they're going to make a big impact on this team. Some of them are players that we've already know that they've been on campus multiple years, but there's also been some new players that are really going to make a huge impact this fall. So I'm really excited to talk about that. But before we do, be sure to follow us on our social media channels at touchdown_Texas. And be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We hope you're enjoying our content. So let's talk about it. So, like I said, spring practice just ended last Saturday with the accumulation of the 15 practices they had with the scrimmage that was open to the fans. And I just want to talk about first the biggest takeaways from that practice. And I wasn't there personally, but I read a lot of reports, and I had some friends that were there. They were reporting to me in real time what was happening. And let me just tell you, the depth on this team is just absolutely crazy. One of the deepest teams so far in the Steve Sarkisian era. And that really helps because we've had multiple top 5 recruiting classes. We had the #1 recruiting class in 2025 and just continue to stack and stack talent together. And it helps that Longhorns are putting a great product on the field and are winning games. And Austin and UT is such an attractable option for players all around the country. These are not just players in Texas. We're winning recruitments in heavy hitter states like Florida, Georgia, even some in California and the East Coast, North Carolina, etc. So that's the thing that stands out with this team. We have multiple players that can fill in case there's injuries, and they are NFL players just like the starters. They have the size, they have the athleticism. Some of them need a little bit more development than others, but the talent on this team is absolutely ridiculous. But does talent equate to wins? Not necessarily. Also, you need good coaching, you need development, and you need cohesiveness as a team. And that's what Steve Sarkisian and the staff have been really emphasizing. They started their Culture Wednesday, something that they do in the offseason a little bit earlier than they did because we had so many new freshmen coming in and some transfers as well. This transfer portal class, their early returns is that almost all of them have hit, and they are complete ballers that are going to add great things to this team. So I'm really excited to talk about that. And if you want to hear about more of the transfer class, be sure to go to our previous episodes where we talk about some of the commits that land, as well as some of the top rated freshmen that are coming in that just enrolled in January. So be sure to check out our previous episodes on that, because we break those down and what kind of impact they can have early and what kind of career that they could have at Texas. So just want to start out with that. But then in the scrimmage, the defensive line really stood out. The defensive line is long, they're athletic, they're fast, they're big, and they're physical. They can also stop the run and get sacks in the passing game. It is not just the interior defensive line, the edge rushers as well. We know Colin Simmons, he's the best edge rusher in the country. I still think he's better than South Carolina's Dylan Stewart. But also we have other guys like Lance Jackson, who got some minutes last year as a true freshman. He's getting bigger and stronger. He's going to make a huge impact. What about Zena Umuzelu, who was not a big-time recruit, but came in and he was playing from spot minutes last year, and he was getting some recorded pressures on the quarterback every time he was coming in because he had fresh legs and he could add a different dimension to the defense. Also, we have some of the younger guys, Richard Wesley, who, by the way, should be a senior in high school right now. He reclassified early from California. We also have Smith Orogwo, another true freshman. He's looked really good. And the Jamarian Carlton as well. So we have guys that are can be really high impact players. But on the defensive line, this defensive line is starting to really look like the Georgia and Alabama teams of Nick Saban and Kirby Smart. I believe this defensive line is absolutely going to cause havoc. Quarterbacks are going to be running for their life because they're not going to know what to do. Offensive linemen are going to struggle. They're going to draw a lot of holding calls. They're going to get a lot of sacks, tackle for losses, and quarterback hurries on the quarterback. I believe, Ian Graffard, who came in from Arkansas, he is a mountain of a man. He's big, physical, and fast. He is a name Longhorns fans should definitely know because I think he is going to be the anchor for our defensive lineman, and he's going to get a lot of push up the middle, as well as we have other talented guys. We have, Hero Canoe, who flirted with the NFL draft last year, but decided to come back to the 40 acres. Alex January, he's had some really good moments in his career, early career. He's going to be only a junior. So, and then also the younger guys, the redshirt freshman, Josiah Sharma from California. He's really progressed this spring, as well as Myron Charles. His development has taken a really uphill curve so far that he has looked really good in practice. And this is even without Justice Terry, the five-star freshman who we stole from Georgia a couple of years ago. He's been in and out of, spring practice. He's not been able, he's been doing kind of work by himself on the side, but he needs to get fully healthy. And he was a guy that, we convinced to come back, to Texas because there were some rumors that he may enter the transfer portal, but he loved Texas. He wanted to be at Texas. And he is a guy he has probably the highest ceiling out of anybody on the defensive line. So it just shows you that we're going to throw so many bodies, throw so many bodies at them and make it really tough for the offensive line to figure out who's coming or not. So that's the position that I'm most excited about. They've lived up to the rating so far in the spring, and I cannot wait to see the havoc that they're going to create in the fall. And that is the key, havoc, because Steve Sarkisian got rid of Pete Kokowski, who had a really good run at Texas, and brought in Will Muschamp, his second tour of duty in Austin. And the difference between Muschamp and Pete Kokowski is Pete Kokowski likes to keep things in front of him. And it was so frustrating at times because our quarterbacks would be 8 yards off the wide receiver. They would just do easy slant routes, curl routes, etc., and just get easy first down on us because we did not want to get beat over the middle and we wanted to keep everything in front of us. Well, Muschamp is the complete opposite. He wants to create as much havoc on defense as possible. He's going to be dialing up exotic blitzes, exotic schemes that other teams have not really seen before, and he's just going to put pressure on the offense for 60 minutes, 4 quarters, the entire game. That's the mentality that you need if you're a Texas fan, especially with this defense, because there is a lot of really good, potent offenses in the SEC, and they were starting to figure out Pete Kokowski, but now they added a different dimension with Will Muschamp, and I cannot wait to see what kind of destruction that they cause on the offenses when the season starts in the fall. As well as the different dimension added with Will Muschamp was I'm finally excited that we're finally going to see bump and run man-to-man sticky coverage. That's another key because our DBs are much better than they have in the past of playing the ball when it's in the air, getting their head turned around, and make sure that they play the ball without causing defensive pass interference. That's the key. And, Will Muschamp also preaches very much technique, and I think we have corners that can play man-to-man coverage that have really, really good technique. In the secondary. Like I'm not concerned with the cornerbacks at all. The safeties, which I'm going to be talking about in a few minutes, besides Jelani McDonald's, I have some question marks. But let's talk about the cornerbacks who also had a really good spring practice. They're also very physical. They have great techniques. They can play bump to bump coverage on the wide receiver, sticky man coverage, and they're really good at playing the ball, and not only that, but causing turnovers. Specifically, Rutgers transfer Bo Masco, who was an honorable All Big Ten mention last year. He has come into spring practice and absolutely turned heads. He had a string of like 3 to 4 practices, I believe, reading the practice reports. He had an interception. The ball just finds him, and he's really good at playing the ball when it's in the air, and at times running the route better than the wide receiver does and tracking the ball when it's in the air. So it looks like Bo Masco has locked down one of the corner spots. Now, the other corner spot is either going to be between Cade Phillips, who last year played at the end towards his freshman year, really long, talented corner from Houston, but also Kobe Black, who flirted with entering the transfer portal, but he had a really good game against A&M in the season-ending game, and He had an interception, a couple PBUs. He was stepping in really nicely in the A&M game. So let's see if he can carry the momentum into this year. They said he's really done a good job of holding off Cade Phillips and been performing well in practice. That's the thing about depth. The more competition that you have in practice, the better and more prepared that these guys will be when it's time to play on Saturdays. Because at times when you're playing against inferior opponents, practice going against, Cam Coleman, Emmett Mosley, or Ryan Wingo, etc., will be harder actually than the game. So if you're ready for practice and performing well in practice, you will be ready to excel in the game. So that's the part that I really, really like, the competition, because that's what depth brings. So I'm not concerned about the corner spot. I actually feel good about the corner spot, especially that we're going to be playing man to man defense. But safeties, I am a little concerned about the safety room. But of course we have Jelani McDonald, who came back, who also thought about entering the NFL draft. But we have a lot of guys that are talented, but let's see what they can bring. Jordan Johnson Rubell, who played last year, like Xavier Filsaime, who had some up and down moments last year as well. Jonah Williams, who he just needs to get healthy. He's probably the most talented player in the safety room, but he's been playing football and baseball back and forth. He just needs to, in my opinion, eventually pick one sport and then stay healthy and hone his craft on that sport, even though he's an excellent athlete in both. So the safety room, I can, use some work, but the key to that is if we're generating pressure on the quarterback, then the quarterback won't have as much time to hold on to the ball. And then that means that our safeties and our cornerbacks won't have to cover for that long, and they just need to come in, because whenever you have a lot of pressure, that usually leads to screen passes for the running back or screen passes to the wide receiver. Then those guys need to come in and help with run support, and they are really good tacklers. So let's see what that happens. It's still early. We're only in April, but that's some positions that I'm excited about. And then safety, let's see how they continue to progress. Also, another position I'm really excited about, and a player I'm really excited about, Rasheem Biles, was a first team All ACC player at Pittsburgh last year. Boy, he is such a talented player. He's also fits perfectly in Will Muschamp's creating havoc scene. He's everywhere, all around the ball, getting to the quarterback, getting to the running back, getting to the wide receiver if he needs to be. He is definitely going to start at linebacker. He may be one of the best overall players on the entire defense. He's smart. He knows all the signals. He knows all the plays, where to be at the right place of the field. He can run sideline to sideline. He's physical. He's instinctive. He can read defense offenses really well. He is going to be the quarterback for the defense. Most likely, he's going to be wearing the green dot that Anthony Hill wore last year. Green dot is where the coaches could communicate with that player about the plays, and then that shuts off 10 seconds before the snap. But also in the linebacking room, we have Ty Anthony Smith, who's going into his junior year, who's had a really good career so far at Texas in limited action, because we've had Anthony Hill, playing the majority of the linebacking reps. So I really liked him. And then also Justin Cryer from Florida State. He's kind of surprised some, because he was kind of a underrated transfer portal guy that was not the highest rated, but we signed as well. So we have some depth in this linebacker room. Brad Spence, the Arkansas transfer, who had his first season on the 40 acres last year. He didn't play that much, but he can have a role either as a hybrid, edge pass rusher or a linebacker. So these guys, what I'm trying to say is they're very versatile. They can be moved all over the field, and they are going to get confuse the offenses with all the different looks that Will Muschamp is going to throw at him. So, in my opinion, Rasheed Biles has been one of the standout players on defense so far this spring, and he's been better than expected coming in from Pittsburgh. So now let's talk about the offense a little bit. So there were some major players that were out, of course they did the drills part, of when the fans were there, at the game, at the practice. But I want to read you some of the players that sat out, for the scrimmage part. Arch Manning, of course, we know he's still recovering, from surgery earlier this offseason. Cam Coleman, Ryan Wingo, Trevor Guzman, Colin Simmons, Ty Anthony Smith, Xavier Filsaime, and Zena Umunuzelu. In my opinion, those are 8 NFL players that sat out, but you could still see how talented this Texas team is. And usually in a scrimmage situation, the defense usually has the advantage over the offense because, first of all, the offense is not playing their main players, and the defense can just tee up and get pressure on the quarterback. And that's exactly what happened. Even though I'm encouraged with I saw for the offensive linemen, they played a lot of their second and third string offensive linemen, and the defense it was not fair. They were just having a field day and getting in the backfield. But these kind of spring games are a little bit of a zero-sum game. You want to see the defense dominate, but then what does that say about your offense? Or you see the offense dominate, well, you have question marks on the defense. Something that I'm really happy about so far that's developed this spring is since Arch Manning has been out and getting mental reps, KJ Lacey, the redshirt freshman from Saraland, Alabama, has really had a great spring. He's been getting the majority of the reps with the ones. They said he might not be the biggest guy in the world, but he's poised, he's accurate, he's a gamer, he gets the ball to the right spot, he has good feet. He's not a runner first player, but he can run when he needs to. So we should feel good if, God forbid, knock on wood, that Arch Manning gets dinged up during the season, that KJ Lacey could come in and operate the offense at a really high level. Maybe not as high as Arch, but it can be operational because the last couple of years, the starting quarterback for Texas, Quinn Ewers, and now Arch Manning, has not finished the season for Texas. Even going back to Casey Thompson when Sark first got to Texas, Hudson Card had to come in and spell a couple games for him as well. So this kind of stuff happens, with 9 SEC games. That's the most physical, grueling league in the country by far, not even a comparison. I don't care that the SEC hasn't won a championship in a couple of years. This is the toughest league, and the NFL draft really shows that. So good on KJ Lacey. He's really taking advantage of the spring and his time to get the first team reps and get that coaching and develop chemistry with the wide receivers because he may be needed this season. So also the running back room. Of course, we know, Raleek Brown, really, really talented player. We got out of the transfer portal from Arizona State, started his career at USC, and then Hollywood Smothers from NC State. Those are going to be like your 1-2 guys. And then, of course, you have James Simon, who had some good moments, last year playing as a freshman. But the guy that's really stood out among the freshmen on offense, he actually had a touchdown, by the way, in the open portion of the spring scrimmage with the fans there, is 5-star freshman from Hollywood, Florida, Derek Cooper. This guy is a stud. He is going to be too talented to be kept off the field, in my opinion, because he has the sudden burst, he has the quickness, he has the feet, he runs at a really good pad level. He will truck you if he gets in your way. He's always looking for contact, but also, in my opinion, that he has the breakaway speed necessary that can really take the top off of defenses. That is the key for this. That's why I think this running back room is much better than last year's, because we have guys that can hit their head in the end zone. What I mean by that is scoring touchdowns. Hollywood Smothers, Raleek Brown, as well as Derek Cooper. That's 3 guys, and you can never have too many touchdown makers on your team. So this running game is going to be much more potent than it is last year. A lot of that does depend on the offensive line, the cohesiveness between the offensive line and the running game. But I just think we have better athletes. No offense to Trey Wisner. He had a really good career at Texas. Best of luck to him, him transferring. But I just think that we up the level of talent. And that's just what I mean by this transfer portal class. Because in the past, transfer portal class has not worked out to the way that Sark has liked in the past. But, with the Agiye Hall, etc. But at times, this transfer portal class is really talented, but they're also some dogs. They're hardworking guys on and off the field that want to win and coming in with a chip on their shoulder. And that's why I think Texas has hit so far. Again, when I say hit, they've not played any games so far, but early returns coming in the spring, 3 to 4 months, they have really exceeded expectations. And let's see the kind of level that they can continue to rise to as we get closer to games, in the fall. Also, let's talk about the wide receivers. Of course, we know the headliner, Cam Coleman, who, by the way, some people are saying that he's one of the more underrated players in the country. I don't get that. There's a list that came out that we'll talk about in the next episode. I don't see him underrated. I've always seen the talent of Cam Coleman. He's always been a beast. It's just that Auburn ran a pathetic, putrid offense. They didn't, and he didn't get to run the whole route tree. And now that he's at Texas, he even said it in one of his media availabilities that he's actually running more routes and getting more comfortable running more routes. That was a subtle shot at Auburn, but also Texas is allowing him to expand his skill set, which will prove to be more valuable to him, not only for the Longhorns this fall on the field, but his NFL draft stock. I've said it before. I think he's just as talented. Not I think, actually. I believe he's just as talented as Jeremiah Smith, the stud wide receiver from Ohio State. But I just think he's not been able to showcase his ability because Auburn has just been a revolving door at quarterback. Like Jackson Arnold was just horrible. He's terrible, and Cam Coleman has not had a lot to work with. So that's why I think he made a business decision coming into this is his junior year. He's draft eligible. He looked at all the schools, Texas Tech, A&M, but he saw that Texas had the best quarterback out of all those programs, and he knew he wants a high caliber quarterback like Arch Manning be throwing him the ball, and he's going to continue to develop. He belongs in a big market like Austin, Texas, even though we jokingly said that the biggest adjustment so far is dealing with the Austin traffic. We can all relate to that, and of course, UT parking as well. I think Rasheem Biles complained that he's got multiple tickets by UT parking. Hey, we have a lot of the students have firsthand experience with that, but it just shows so Cam Coleman is the headliner for this wide receiver room. We cannot forget about Ryan Wingo, who made the all SEC team last year. He's also a guy that has big playability. Look at that Mississippi State game where he almost took the second play of the game almost to a touchdown. He had some big moments, but he also had some big drops in last year. So let's see, if another year under his belt, can he get comfortable and continue to establish that rapport with Arch Manning? But Wingo has also the ceiling to be like a early second round player. Let's see if he can capitalize and reach his potential. Emmett Mosley, who missed the first 5 games of the year last year, and his first game was Florida. He started to ramp up and get better and better as the year went on. The question for Emmett Mosley is not his skill set. We know he's a really talented player, but can he stay healthy? And now I feel like, having a year under his belt, he's also in his contract year. Let's see if he goes to the draft, but he knows the playbook now. He's starting to get comfortable with being at Texas because at Stanford, he was in a run-first offense. Well, Texas, as Sark likes to say, we like to set up the run by the pass first to set up the run. So let's see if he can, adjust to that. And he's already getting better running routes, getting open in space, making tough contested catches. I really like where Emmett Mosley is trending to. It's just a matter of him just continuing to get reps and making sure that he stays healthy as well. We cannot forget about Dalen McCutcheon, who played last year towards the end of the season and then in the bowl game. He is a talented player. He was the most polished freshman coming in out of those 5-star receivers of Jamie French and Khalil Lockett. Can he continue to build on that and make an impact as a sophomore? As well as Khalil Lockett, who had some pretty amazing catches against Michigan in the bowl game last year when he was thrust into action because Ryan Wingo got injured, or he missed that game due to injury. So how much could Khalil Lockett take that next step? Is he going to get stronger this offseason? Can he build out his frame? Can he continue to work on the route tree? Can he continue to make tough contested catches and break tackles and get yards after catch? Sark has always kept a tight circle of wide receivers because, it's called circle of trust, as Rod Babers likes to point that out. But this year we have so many talented guys that he may have to, really increase that circle and play more guys this year. I even talked about Jermaine Bishop, who broke all kinds of records in high school football in Texas, in the Houston area, Willis High School, where DJ Lagway went to high school, by the way, as well. He has come in and he's been like a gadget guy. I'm not saying he's going to be this type of player as a freshman, but he has the same skill set as Malachi Tony for Miami? Can he be utilized in that same way? Wide receiver screens, jailbreaks. He's the type of player you want to. He's so explosive. He's so twitchy. You want to get the ball in his hands as much as possible because you know good things are going to happen and the field is really going to open up because of course you're going to have your number one corner on Cam Coleman. That means Ryan Wingo, Emmett Mosley can really eat. But then that means also you can get a favorable matchup on Jermaine Bishop because Sark likes to use a lot of motion and orbit motion to get favorable matchups. So can you get a linebacker on him, a slower player? And if you get him in the short passing game, he can turn a 5-yard play into a 30 to 40-yard gain. That's how much juice and talent this guy has. He is going to be almost impossible to be kept off the field. Maybe use him punt return, kick return, etc. He's really starting to earn the trust of the staff as a true freshman, and he is a guy that I'm super excited about. He's probably my favorite freshman coming in. I just think this talent, the ceiling is just so high for this kid. So he's also going to be in the wide receiver room. It's just insane. It's crazy. Cohen Brown, another freshman from Waxahachie. He's built like a running back. He's a big, physical, strong player. He had a couple catches in the scrimmage. So this wide receiver room is just so deep, so talented. Arch Manning is going to be loving playing quarterback every single Saturday because he just has so many different guys to throw to. And that's a credit to Sark's offense, which is attracting a lot of these talented young guys, but also the scheme and just how good he is at getting guys open. And that really shows on the film. And that's why these guys want to play in the Sark offense. So shout out to Steve Sarkisian. And this is kind of like a make or break year for Texas. Arch Manning's last year. We need to make a deep run in the playoffs. We made it to back-to-back semifinals, kind of knocking on the door with Quinn Ewers. Last year, in the first year, Arch Manning started. We dealt with some injuries, still no excuse. We lost to Florida, game we should not have lost to, etc. And we missed out on the playoffs, even though we ended the year strong, beating Michigan, a team that also almost made the playoffs in the bowl game. This is a year that Texas really needs to make noise. I want to see us get over that hump, get to a national championship game. Because come on, if Indiana can do it, Miami can do it. We are, in my opinion, one of the most talented teams in the country. I know that does not always equal wins, but it always helps when you have a lot of talent. But I think Sark this offseason has also done a really good job revamping the coaching staff where he's getting coaches in that have, NFL mindsets and developmental mindsets that are coming in and going to really develop these players and have them ready to perform in the fall. And then the last position I'm going to talk about before we jump off here is the offensive line. That is some question marks. Not a lot of the offensive linemen played in the scrimmage part, but we have Melvin Saini, who by all accounts is having a really good spring or had a really good spring practice. The transfer from Wake Forest. He should be your right tackle. Moving Brandon Baker to guard has also, he's been doing pretty good and acclimating to that. Even though, guard is a little bit easy to learn the tackle, even though he had a pretty good year last year at tackle. Center, Connor Robertson. Then the left guard is either going to be Skoworski, the transfer from Oregon State, or Jordan Coleman, who's a redshirt freshman, that he's also had a really good standout spring practice so far. He's been turning heads. He's definitely going to play this fall. And then, of course, your left tackle is Trevor Gooseby, who could have probably been a late first round pick, early second round pick, but wanted to come back, develop and hone his skills, play another year at Texas under Kyle Flood, and then hopefully enhances his draft stock. So this offensive line, there's a lot of questions answered. I did like that Coach Flood and Steve Sarkisian did go to the transfer portal because in the past they've really wanted to develop guys in-house. They got some good transfer portal guys, Jonte Newman, from Texas A&M, Skoworski, like I said, and then as well as Siani from Wake Forest. They found the right guys. It's just a matter of them, finding cohesion and then also them gelling as well, because offensive line, we're not going to be able to grade them until we see them play games, because we were high on this offensive line at this time last year. And of course, the season Arch Manning was running for his life, even though they did get better, but Arch Manning got hit way too much last year. So I want to see the offensive line prove it. And the only way they can prove it is Saturdays on the field. But another last thing I want to say is, even though the offensive line was struggling. Kyle Flood kept the same five, and he didn't really make any adjustments and change personnel. Well, this year we have a little bit more depth on the offensive line. Like I said, Jordan Jonte Newman. We have Kojo, we have Jaden Chapman. We have some guys that can really come in and spell those offensive line guys. Jackson Christian, who's a mammoth of a man. So hopefully, not hopefully, we have more depth last year, but can they find the right five? And if those five are not gelling at the beginning of the season, can they quickly pivot and make adjustments, which is something that they did not do last year, and it cost us that Florida game, which ended up costing us, in the playoffs, making the playoffs. But it was a learning lesson last year, and hopefully they took those lessons and they'll apply it to become better this upcoming fall. Well, thank you so much for watching this episode of Touchdown Texas. Be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and also like this video. We really appreciate the support, and be sure to follow us on our social media channels at Touchdown_Texas on Twitter, Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram. We're going to be posting clips from this episode, as well as we have some really exciting content coming up. As we're recording today, April 22nd, the draft is tomorrow. So we have some guys, Texas Longhorns guys, that are going to be drafted. Not as much as the previous years, but still exciting. So next episode, we're going to be talking about the guys drafted, as well as any more, spring practice news heading into the summer, as well as Sean Miller and the basketball team have really been doing a lot of work in the transfer portal, getting a lot of talented guys. They are right now projected to be a top 10 team in the entire country. Once that entire class is filled out, which it almost is, we're going to be breaking down all the transfer portal additions, with the basketball. So be sure to stay tuned. A lot of exciting stuff coming, again, at Touchdown_Texas on our social media channels, TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram. And until then, I appreciate you watching. This is Shivam Patel signing off.